B, E, C, C, E, E, B, G, E flat, F sharp. What you just saw me do was identify a whole series of individual notes without using a reference tone, without spending excessive time dissecting, and perhaps most importantly, without second guessing myself. That might seem to suggest that I have perfect pitch, an ability so rare, some studies suggest 1 in 10,000 people have it. Except, I don't have perfect pitch. I don't have it, I've never had it. And I can prove that I don't have perfect pitch. What I'm gonna do is open up the Sonic app on my phone and generate a random frequency. I thought it was E flat. It's closer to F. So I was about a whole step off. If I truly had perfect pitch, I'd be able to recognize these tones whether or not they were played on the piano or generated as pure sine waves. But I can't. So what do I have? As someone who's played music my entire life, I've always known that my ear was one of my strongest assets, especially when it comes to recognizing chords and melodies in songs. But it wasn't until my early teens that I discovered that in the vast majority of cases, I could also identify the key of a song just by hearing it. Okay, so right now I'm just pulling up random stock music here on Artlist. All these are songs I've never heard before. So we can just pick one of these at random. Glaciers. Let's see what this is. Yeah, so that's like F sharp to B to E flat minor, C sharp. Okay, so I can hear a note on the piano and identify it. I can hear the key of a song and know what the key is. But when I hear pitch generated as pure sine waves, my ability completely falls apart. Why? Well, since the first time that I discovered that I had this ability, I always wanted to know more about it. But to my surprise, I found that by and large, there's just not that much research that's been done on these types of things. In recent years, however, I've become fascinated with a term that I've heard mostly from musicians, which is true pitch. The idea with true pitch is that rather than recognizing a note based on its absolute pitch frequency, the way you would with perfect pitch, you're recognizing notes based on their timbral characteristics. In other words, you're not really going off of the pitch of the note, you're going off of how that note sounds on a particular instrument. Take string players, for example. Many of them can recognize the sound of open strings on their instrument because the timbre of that instrument is so familiar to them. That's likely what's happening with me and the piano. I don't just instantly know in my head what D flat 4 sounds like, but I do know what D flat 4 sounds like on the piano because I've heard it thousands and thousands of times. Okay, so I'm actually right in the middle of editing this video, but I actually think I thought of a better way of explaining this. Let's pretend for a second that I was brand new to the piano. If I heard this note being played, there's very little chance, unless I had perfect pitch, that I'd be able to discern exactly what that note is. However, even though I'm brand new to the piano, I might be able to at least eliminate the possibility that that note was played anywhere in this region of the piano. It definitely has the sound of a note that's played towards the bottom of the keys. As I become more and more familiar with the timbre and the sound of the piano, I start to be able to narrow that range down even more. The note that I played at the beginning was F sharp 1. Eventually, I can start to hear the subtle timbral differences between this note F sharp and B flat 2, or F sharp 1 and A flat 1, or even F sharp 1 and G 1. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. This is similar to the reason why certain people can always reproduce a song that they know in the correct key. It's not necessarily because they have perfect pitch, even though that could be an indicator that somebody has perfect pitch, but it's far more likely that those people are referencing in their head the timbral sound of that song, rather than the raw pitch frequencies of that song. This also explains why I struggle with hearing sine waves and other wind instruments like flutes and clarinets, and yes, things like synthesizers. The issue for me is that those instruments lack the overtones and the necessary timbral qualities that my ears depend on. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what about that song that I played earlier? There was no piano in that track. And here's where I think it gets really interesting. The piano is a string instrument. Sound is produced by hammers striking strings, similar to a guitar. For this reason, I think that my pitch recognition ability extends across other stringed instruments, like guitar, bass, violins, violas, cellos. But before I get so dug in on this, I also want to acknowledge that this ability is actually a very small part of the reason why myself and other musicians are able to pick out songs by ear. The main reason is actually because I've developed my relative pitch, which is a far more important skill to have as a musician, and is also something that can be learned by anybody. Relative pitch is the ability to discern the identity of notes given a reference tone. So for instance, if I played this chord sequence, someone who has a well-developed relative pitch would be able to conclude that the sequence was a 1-6-2-5 in a major key. They wouldn't necessarily be able to determine the exact key, but if I was to then say that the starting chord was A flat, they'd be able to use their relative pitch to fill in the rest. Okay, but this true pitch thing seems to be very closely related to the ability of perfect pitch. And studies seem to indicate that perfect pitch is something that's learned at a very young age. So clearly, true pitch must be something that can't be learned as an adult. And while I can only speak for myself, I can confidently say that the ability that I have did not form at a young age. Because it wasn't until my 9th birthday that I received as a gift a digital keyboard. Why is this relevant? Because up until that point, I had been for my entire life been playing on an old upright Baldwin piano that was almost a full step out of tune. In that video, you can see based on my fingers that I'm playing in the key of C minor, but what you're hearing is almost the key of B flat minor. And again, this is what I grew up playing and practicing on every single day until the age of 9. And yet when I switched to playing my digital keyboard, which was obviously in standard tuning, I never remember having a moment where it felt like my brain had to unlearn anything. No mental adjustment, no confusion. And again, I think that's actually pretty exciting because it seems to suggest that the ability that I have was instilled in me long after I was a baby. So what does all this mean? Well, I think that it means that pitch recognition abilities exist far more on a spectrum than what research might tell us. I'm not at all claiming to have anywhere near the abilities of Jacob Collier and Rick Beato's son.
How about from the top down? This is a tricky one here.
E, C, A, F, C sharp, A sharp, F sharp, D.
Those are extraordinary examples of early developed perfect pitch, which does in fact appear to be only something that can be learned at a very young age. But the reason I'm sharing this is to demonstrate that pitch recognition can evolve and develop well into adolescence, even adulthood. And if sharing that helps and inspires others who might feel like they're too late to develop their ear, then I'll feel like making this video served a purpose. But what do you guys think? Do you have skills related to pitch recognition that you feel don't get discussed? Do any of these examples resonate with your own experiences? Love to hear your thoughts. That's gonna do it for this one, guys. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.